197 suspects. $652 million tracked. A hidden command center buried under a St. Paul warehouse. This wasn't a drug bust. It was a system takedown. Agents launched a high-tempo assault to overwhelm the network before a single warning could spread. And when they pried open the floor of a seemingly ordinary site, they found servers humming, radios organized, and handwritten multi-state delivery schedules on the wall. That room proved the cartel wasn't fighting turf. It was mastering logistics within real supply chains. Watch how the raid's timing cracked their operational security and exposed a blueprint built to survive disruption. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Why choose 1 minute 4 a.m. to hit 197 doors at once? Because one synchronized second is harder to defend than a wall. A cartel can brace for force. It cannot brace for silence arriving everywhere at the same time. That clock tick strips away their best weapon. Time to warn, time to wipe, time to run. The assault moved like a timetable. Black helicopters lifted without lights, blades masked by city noise and a cold sky. Unmarked convoys rolled out from staging lots, each car preloaded with entry tools, evidence kits, and a hard window to act. Teams were pre-briefed to hit both living rooms and loading bays, townhouses and warehouses. Each crew carried a narrow mission: seize comms, lock down movement, grab records before anything could sink. Across the Twin Cities and into the ring counties, the same knock, the same wedge, the same minute. The cartel drew strength from quiet lanes and soft signals. Every crew knew only its corridor. A normal raid, one door, then another, would spill alerts across the network. One early call to a dispatcher or a night clerk, and the lights would go out in 20 places at once. That's how they'd survived smaller investigations. Melt away at the first hint of heat and reset routes 2 days later. Agents studied the dead spots of the clock. Couriers who drove late slept in tight windows before dawn. Logistics hubs turned over around 4 a.m., when one shift left the radios and the next hadn't signed on. Night customs at the crossings ran reduced staffing, meaning fewer watchful eyes but also fewer trucks to hide in. Warehouse back doors, usually held by overtime guards, were down to skeleton crews with slower call trees. The map wasn't just streets, it was habits. Suppression started before the first foot hit a step. Spectrum teams scanned the bands used by handhelds and local repeaters to spot live nodes. Judges signed warrants for cell site simulators, allowing targeted phones to be located and pinned long enough to intercept a wipe command or a mass text. At select properties, power crews cut specific feeds, not full blocks, to stall alarm cascades and force systems onto slower backups. The goal wasn't blackout. It was a stutter, just long enough to hold data in place. Most operations leak by their own size. Target lists pass too many desks, and a whisper becomes a crack. Here, names were split across compartments. A team knew its slice and nothing more. Sealed warrants landed only hours before execution, boxed in with logistics so there was no time for a rumor to travel. Even transport routes to staging were randomized, so tails couldn't map the plan. At one safe house, a courier's lights dropped at 3:58 a.m., phone set to charge on a table that doubled as a ledger desk. By 4:03, an entry team had the handwritten books in an evidence bag and a route tablet wrapped in a Faraday sleeve. The tablet's sync window hit at 4:05. They beat it by 2 minutes, which meant the wider net didn't get the ping that would have scrubbed half a schedule. Research into tiered criminal structures shows they live on latency. They expect a warning to move up levels, then down again with new instructions. If you shrink that signal time to 0 across a city, the fallback plans don't fire. Side doors stay closed. Drivers wait for orders that never come. That's why 4 a.m. mattered. The network's human and digital lungs were smallest then. Few handlers awake, quiet radios, slow freight. Hits landed inside that narrow breath, froze relocation protocols, and turned a busy week into a still frame. With the noise cut, one location drew attention for a different reason. No product on the floor, no chatter on the air, and a building that didn't match its own blueprints. Agents pry up a slab near the loading bay, expecting a shallow void or a stash. The cover plate gives way to poured concrete set over a hinged frame. Beneath it, A stair drops into a narrow shaft lined with sound-damped panels, not a locker. A room meant to disappear during any routine walkthrough. That single cut changes the weight of every prior arrest. You don't build a space like this to hide a few bricks. You build it to run routes, monitor traffic, and keep the entire operation alive when a front door fails. The path to the find starts with small mismatches. One interior wall measures thicker than the plan set by several inches. Recent conduit runs tie into a subpanel with no listed load, capped and labeled like it feeds something that isn't there. Thermal scans show a cooler stripe along the floor in one quadrant, like conditioned air bleeding into a void. Forklifts pass the same corner without ever staging pallets there. A building that should reflect ambient warehouse conditions runs a small, steady temperature drift overnight. Maintenance logs show work orders that never appear on the utility company's books. For months, every open door looked clean. Front offices held tidy invoices. Pallets carried normal SKUS. Dock cameras caught standard arrivals and departures with no odd spikes. When agents traced product, the trail seemed to die at the loading dock counter where signatures lined up and dispatch notes matched the manifest. Every time they pushed for the next link, the records looked routine and the footprint dissolved. The descent confirms the suspicion. Steps terminate in a cramped landing that opens into a multi-level layout cut under the main floor. Racks of servers hum behind mesh doors, each tied through managed switches with labeled ports. A benchtop holds radios staged by route, tagged by corridor and channel plan. Whiteboards sit on sliding rails with time windows and state codes. Soundproofing keeps it quiet. Cable trays run clean. Someone built this with the same discipline you'd see in a small carrier's network ops room. Evidence sits in reach. Handwritten schedules map Minnesota nodes to handoffs crossing state lines, each with departure, dwell, and delivery windows. Backup drive caddies stack in a safe, each labeled by quarter rather than by job name. Laminated contingency checklists lay out a 48-hour relocation plan, down to who pulls drives, who kills power, and which address receives the next radio set. It reads like a playbook meant to survive a limited breach and come back online fast. This facility removes any doubt. The network didn't live on street corners. It moved like freight. Purchase orders fed into carrier manifests. Pickups and drops observed just-in-time windows. The cadence mirrors legitimate logistics, using the same rhythms that keep regular goods flowing so nothing looks out of place unless you overlay the timing with non-public dispatch data. On one board, a week's plan lists 3 states, 4 handoff points, and 2 timing buffers. Investigators run plates against highway cameras and see tractors with matching trailers hitting those windows days earlier, entering and leaving the same layover lots. The routes aren't improvisations. They are rehearsed paths with slack built in for weather or inspection delays.